back to my blanket fort. I hope you like the new thing. Here's my name, if you were ever wondering. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about my disability and how it pertains to reading specifically. So I was inspired by two other creators to make this video who made theirs a long time ago. The first one is Merphy Napier, who made a video about reading with her dyslexia, which I'll link both of them down below, by the way. And the second one is from about 6 months ago, Kit's World, who talks about reading with his autism. And I wanted to make this video because I think not enough people talk about disability across the board, whether it's reading or anything else, honestly. And also because I thought it'd be fun, and why not? So just to give a quick recap, my medical history is like longer than a dictionary, trust me. But long story short, pertaining to my eyes specifically, I have a nystagmus and a strabismus. Strabismus is basically the medical term for a lazy eye. As you can see, my eye is like looking over there. So basically I'm always looking with one eye, and then I have like peripheral vision with that one, but if I look with both at the same time, I have double vision, which is not very helpful. And then a nystagmus is basically a neurological condition where your eyes are shaking all the time. So my eyes are shaking right now. The camera's very shaky. I'll get a little shaky. So I did grow up reading like physical copies. I don't remember because I became disabled when I was 8, and I was a hardcore reader apparently before that. So, and I honestly have no recollection of what it is like to read as a non-disabled person. So the way it affects my reading, I mean, you kind of guessed it, my eyes shake all the time. It depends on the day because it is a neurological condition. It depends on the day, the lighting, whether I'm standing, sitting, even like what sitting position I'm in matters a lot. I do find that daylight is a lot easier for me than like artificial lighting, depending on whether it's a warm light or a cold light. I think like semi-warm, is that a thing? I don't know. Anyway. But I do, like, my favorite time to read is like it's like morning, but you're inside, so it's like not direct daylight, it's like daylight coming through a window, and I do like to sit right by the window. One thing that's kind of funny though when I do read, because my eyes are shaking, sometimes I see things like, I don't want to say I see things that aren't there, but I see things differently than what they are. Like I get I's and L's confused, I get 3's and 9's confused, or like, you know, and depending on the font, it's gonna be like a little bit weird. Actually, one thing, I did mention Merphy Napier earlier. When I found her channel for the first time, I was fully convinced, inside out and upside down, that it said Merphy Napier, like the I was an L. And for like a solid 6 months, I referred to her channel, thankfully not on YouTube or like in a video, but like I was fully convinced it was Merphy Napier. And to this day, like I can't remember, I think one day I was just scrolling and I saw it was an I and not an L, and I was like, really? To this day, Merphy Napier sounds wrong. Like, I have to say Merphy Napier for my sensitivities. It is much easier for me to exist as a human if it's Merphy Napier. But I say Merphy Napier because, like, you know, whatever. So, and sometimes when I'm reading, I will say certain things happen. Like, you know when you're reading a line and it, like, you reread the same line, but because of this particular sentence, it flows perfectly and it works, and you just reread the same line over and over and over, and you're like, huh, this is kind of repetitive. That happens to me a lot. sometimes I'll be reading a line and then halfway through the line my eye skips to the line below and I'll read like the first half of a line and the second half of a different line, and like sometimes it makes sense. I wish I had I should have brought examples, because like sometimes I'm reading a completely different book even when we're reading the same book. So sometimes when I do book reviews I'm kind of like, I don't know if I should talk about details because I'm not even sure that the details my brain interpreted exist. I don't know. But yeah, maybe I should pay more attention to when I do that in the future so I could give fun examples. Because sometimes I also read a word differently than what the word actually is, and it makes for very, very interesting moments. Like sometimes I'll be reading something very serious and my brain interprets it as like smut or porn. It's like just because one word is different. So there you go. The other thing that's kind of interesting, by the way, so typically, like, as you can see right now, I'm blocking off my left eye so I can only see with my right eye like this. So typically I'll just like read, because I live my day like this. I can see with my left eye, by the way. Like it's fully functioning, maybe a little bit weird. But sometimes, like, when my right eye gets tired, or like if the nystagmus is particularly shaky that day, then I'll like, these glasses have like a wide or like a bigger lens, so I have to pull them up, but sometimes I can read like underneath here, just not both eyes at the same time, so in that case I'll like close this eye. Another fun fact about nystagmus, and I think this is everyone with a nystagmus, but there's a particular spot if you look like up or left or right or down or whatever where it's not as shaky, so it's easier to like see, your eye's more stable is what I mean. So for me, for my left or my right eye, it's like up here. So sometimes if I have to read a label, like if I'm looking at tomato soup or whatever and I want to see the ingredients, then typically I'll just be like, I'll read it here. Like that. That was my copy of The Plague, by the way. Review coming up. So pertaining to publishers or publishing, one thing that I do like, let's take this book for example. I do really like this book edition. It's the French Livre de Poche. One thing that is very helpful for me, and I think with a lot of visually impaired people, is when the pages are off-white instead of stark white, because whether it's daylight or artificial lighting, a lot of the times, if it's stark white, the light will reflect onto it and bounce into my eyes, but like, yeah, so sometimes it's hard to read, because like a post-it note, what did I write? Anyway, as you can see, these pages are like off-white, which is nice. This is kind of like, this is the contrast of paper to word, like black on beige is what I mean by off-white, is easier than black on white because the contrast sometimes is a little bit too much. For the eyes, the other thing that I really like is when there's a good like font size to page size. Like, there are books, okay, where the font is so unnecessarily small, and then there's like a giant margin on the side. Why? Like, you're not saving room on the page. It's kind of weird, you know what I mean? And then there are books where like the words go all the way, especially on paperbacks, to like the edge of the page, and that's not as annoying, but it still kind of bothers my eyes sometimes. Like, my eyes are reading it and then the word goes off the page, or almost, and then my eyes just like all the way over there, and I'm like, no, kind of annoying. But that's more of like a personal preference. The other thing I do want to say is, please, a proper, okay, just in case anyone's trying to read this, let me get to the beginning so no one gets spoiled. But like, when there's proper space between each lines, please, proper spacing between each lines, thank you. Because sometimes they're like I don't care if they're too far apart, but when they're too close together, it's like, what are you trying to invent a new alphabet or something? Like, stop. I do also listen to audiobooks, even though I prefer reading paperbacks. Sometimes when my eyes are tired, they're just too tired, or I don't know, if I need to read a book in a certain time period, I'll do audiobook just because sometimes with paperbacks, I mean, it depends so much on whether my eyes are tired or not. That's so out of my control. You know what I mean? You know what I mean. So, and then the last thing I wanted to talk about is ableism in the publishing world and like representation of disability. I can only talk about physical disabilities in this one because I haven't been diagnosed with any mental disabilities or anything. But where are the disabled characters? Where are the disabled authors and where are the disabled characters? Okay. Um, and if you're gonna start naming books, I have to say, when was last time you read a book where a character had a disability, physical or mental or both, and the book was not about the disability? Like, have you ever read a book about a character that was a brunette and the whole book revolved around that fact? Like, sometimes people are disabled and that's it. You know, and it has zero to do with, it's like, I get having tropes around disability and everything, but like, first of all, y'all aren't going to do those correctly because half the time disabilities are written by non-disabled authors and they just butcher it to the max. And also, disabled publishers aren't, or I mean, disabled authors aren't published nearly enough. Disabled characters that are just disabled and that's it, like, don't exist, to be honest. If they do, they're certainly not, you know, talked about or anything. I can't even name any off the top of my head. Um, oh my gosh, like, it's just terrible. It's terrible. I did want to mention one last thing before I go. Take this for what it's worth. But I don't necessarily go out of my way to find disabled authors and characters. I do look for them, but I don't go out of my way. In the same vein, I don't go out of my way to find non-disabled authors and non-disabled characters. The same way I don't go out of my way to find non any author or character with a difference in the slightest. I don't go out of my way. So take that for what that's worth. Let me know what you think of this little doohickey I got going on. Subscribe, like this video if you did, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.